Hey everybody, I'm going to work out the day 28 program. And so if you need help when I'm not around, or if you prefer to listen to recorded me, here you go. So day 28, try, and your name would be great, and even the date. Okay, so I ask you to get an integer from the user, and you're supposed to use a try except structure. So you start by looking back at our notes. You can open the slide deck and look, you got to say try, colon, inside of a while true. So inside of a while true, and then you tab in and say try, and then you say, let's do A and B for the two numbers. Int input, please enter an integer. Okay. And then the next line is a break. And then backspace, and now we say except value error. This is the error that comes up in Python, the exception error that comes up if somebody enters something that's not an integer when you're trying to get an integer. And so at this point, you say, not a valid integer, please try again. And you don't have to add anything more to there. This is a perfectly good try except structure. Okay, that gets the first integer. And so right here, I'm going to print, thanks, you're halfway there. All right, because that, we got two integers. In fact, maybe up here, I'm going to say, I'm going to ask you for two integers. I'm going to put a space in front of not a valid integer just because it's going to make it easier to see the questions and the answers when we run this program. So let's run the program right now. Please enter an integer. I'm going to say, hello. It's not a valid integer. Please try again. Please enter an integer. I'll hit enter. Not a valid integer. I'll say 3.4. Not a valid integer. And then I'll finally say 3. And it says, thanks. You're halfway there. And I think I'll put a comma after thanks. Okay, so that gets one integer. Now I'm going to copy this whole thing because why not? I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to say, I'm going to change it to B. And I'm going to say a second integer. Because we need it in a different variable name, and we've already got this thing working. So please enter an integer, 4. Please enter a second integer, 45. Okay. So then now I asked you to print all the numbers from the low integer to the high integer, the first integer to the second integer, in 3 columns. So we're going to use we learned about columns last week, 4x in range a comma b plus 1. And the reason you have to do b plus 1 is I wanted you to include the b value in it. So if they entered 3 and 30, I want the last number printed to be 30. And Python always does one less than the second number in a thing like this. And so on the next line, we're going to say print x, and then we say end equals that. That's a tab, \t. So we learned all this on Thursday, sorry. And then we have to make a trigger for when we're going to go to a new column. And for that, we actually have to go right here and say c equals 1. We're going to make a count variable. And every time we print a number, we're going to add 1 to the count number. But right here, we're going to say if c modulo 3 equals 0, then we're going to print without this tab. And then here we're going to say c equals c plus 1. And that way c starts out at 1, and then it's 2, and then it's 3. And when it's 3 and you printed the number, then Python prints to a new line. So then you'll get these columns. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if we enter 3 and 30, here's the numbers from 3 to 30 printed in 3 columns. And I noticed one thing we want here is all the way to the left, we want, after all that, we want to print all by itself. And then I think we'll do another print, just so we have a blank line there. And then the last part of today's assignment was I asked you to ask the user if they want to run again. And so to do that, you select your whole program. So come up here to the before we select the whole program, let's put a while true right here. And then we have to select the whole rest of the program, and you just hit a tab key. that indents it all. And now we have a loop. And then it's funny, we have a loop inside of a loop and another loop, and we have another loop, but all that's inside of this while true. So then way down here after these prints, we're going to say R equals input, run again, hit enter to run again, type anything else to quit. This is what I'm asking you to do today. A little bit different kind of a run again thing. So if they just hit enter without typing anything, it'll run again. So how do we deal with that? Well, you can say if R not equal empty quotes, then break. Another way you could do it is to say if the length of R is greater than 0, then break. You don't need both of these. This is just two different ways to do it. So this is saying, hey, if R is not empty, break. That means they typed something, so we quit. The alternative is if the length of R is greater than 0, that means they entered something, so we're going to quit. And you can use either of those to make this happen. You don't need them both. That would be silly. And then if you want, you can print a goodbye message all the way unindented. Print, thanks, goodbye. Okay, so I'll run it one more time. We're going to enter an integer, hit enter. Oh, no. Oh, okay, well, I'll enter 3. And then halfway there, I entered some stuff. Oh, now I'm going to do 80. It is an integer. It prints the numbers from 3 to 80 in 3 columns. Run again, hit enter to run again. Type anything else to quit. I'm going to hit enter. And I'm running again. This time I'm going to go 3, 34. And then this time I'm going to say something. And it quits. There you go.